Greetings and welcome to the Exploring Open Educational Resources and Adaptive Technology in Statistics. Thanks for joining us today. I'm John Britch, a marketing nerd at Knewton, and joining me are Eric Stano, Senior Director of Content, and Professor G. Tashbin, Instructor of Mathematics in the College of Arts and Sciences at the University of Mobile, where he teaches statistics and algebra. So, if you have any questions during the session, please type them in the question box and we'll answer them during the Q&A portion or using email after the session. This presentation will be recorded and we'll send you a link to the recording afterwards. So now, without further ado, please welcome Eric Stano, Senior Director of Content, to talk about OER and adaptive learning.
Hi, everybody. This is Eric, and I appreciate you taking time out of what I know are very busy days for you to join us. What I'm going to do is sort of set the stage for what Knewton does, what our Alta platform accomplishes, and then I'm going to turn it over to the more interesting person, G, following that. And again, I appreciate you joining us while I'm here in New York, awaiting our third nor'easter in 2 weeks' time. So let's get right to it. So this is something that the slide that's in front of you is a phrase that really animates everybody here at Knewton. We want to put achievement within reach of absolutely every student, be that a student who is graduating high school with a 4.0 and is ready to go and race through their academic career with great success, or whether it's a student who is on the bubble and may not be manifesting as college ready or may simply not be college ready. And I'll get a little bit more into this, but also we consider students who might be coming to your classes with additional challenges, be it visual impairment, hearing impairment, etc. This is sort of our mission statement, being able to put achievement within reach of everybody who's entering your class. Full disclosure, I was an editorial director at a traditional publishing company for the better part of 20 years. And if I was on camera, you would all responsibly be saying, wow, he looks so young. But what's really exciting about being here, I just joined Knewton in May, is that this is a technology company at its core. And there is the real blend here of not only expertly designed technology, we've got a fleet of engineers that surround me every day, but there's also a passion for education. And again, ensuring that all students are going to achieve the outcomes that you legislate for them and that they aspire to themselves. So it's an incredible blend, an incredible symbiosis of technology and a passion for education that really defines Knewton, and it's made for an old guy who's been in higher ed publishing for the better part of 2 decades. It's made for a real awakening, and it's really re-energized me, and hopefully what you see today will energize you to consider us. So I talked about what animates us, putting achievement within reach. There are a number of components to that. None of this will be surprising. And actually, again, more full disclosure, I was actually in developmental education as part of my publishing career for the last 8 years at the traditional publisher. And these were things that were thrown into very sharp relief for me, but I know as redesign and other initiatives unfold, these are probably coming into sharper relief for you. So starting on the left side, what we really are trying to help you navigate is the varying levels of student preparedness. Again, those students who are on the bubble, those students who are ready to go, being able to provide them with an experience that is the most effective. That feeds into large class sizes. The larger they get, the more divergent the skill levels tend to be, the levels of preparedness. Something I'll get into a little bit later, content additions. You as instructors are probably all too familiar with the conceit of, well, now, instructor, we're moving from edition 4 to edition 5, so time to change up all of your notes and consider the new edition. That is something that does not exist with our courseware here at Knewton. I'll dig a little bit more into that. I've already glanced by the notion of complicated tech product. When I joined Knewton, somebody in our UX department actually said to me that simple is hard. And one of the great things is that they think about and have always thought about how to make the experience for both students and instructors as simple as possible. And a lot of that hard work preceded me and is imbued in the platform. Retention rates, obviously something that we're all who are involved in higher ed are concerned about and want to encourage higher retention rates. And finally, class management, and I'll glance by that as well. So a couple of beliefs just to orient you around what Knewton's all about. We're a tech startup. We're in Union Square in New York City. And I've already sort of stuck a flag in this one. But again, we want to put achievement within reach of everyone, regardless of what sort of challenges they might have, or what hurdles they might have already overcome to be ready for the coursework that you're giving them. We also recognize that there are no silver bullets. As I talk about what Knewton's Alta platform can do, and Knewton's Alta platform is at its core an adaptive, mastery-based platform, and as I talk with that with instructors, oftentimes a response will be, well, what do I do? Where am I in this mix? And we consider ourselves a platform that augments what you're trying to do and aids you and aids your students. But we recognize that there's no silver bullets. We design our courseware to presume the presence of an instructor, be it an expert instructor who's been in the classroom for 20 some odd years, be it an adjunct who got hired on a Friday and is in a classroom on a Monday, or in a classroom on Friday afternoon. We presume that dynamic, that dialectic, because we know that there's no one single thing we can do digitally to solve every problem that's out there. We really beg the presence of an instructor, again, be it one who's been around for a long time doing what they do really well, or one who is a freeway flyer who has very little time to enact what they've been, what's been demanded of them. And it goes to this slide, which is really, we want to ensure that you as instructors are able to teach your way, but give you the confidence that your students are with you. Again, we really want to ensure that there's a real symbiosis between what we do and what you're trying to accomplish. So just some key facts around, again, who Knewton is, what we are. We launched, actually, we're a new entrant into higher ed publishing independently, but we actually launched in 2009. We were essentially the quote unquote intel inside traditional publishers' platforms when they established and sussed out that an adaptive capability is really going to enable instructors to achieve what they want to achieve and give students the journey that they need towards achieving particular objectives. And during that time, we spent 100 million plus on our adaptive capabilities. We've engaged with more than 15 million students, provided 28 billion recommendations. And the reason we're talking to you today, and not in the context of a Pearson, a McGraw-Hill, a Cengage, is because we established that we were the intel inside on what are called old tech stacks. They have technology that is 20 some odd years old. They were not able to harness the capabilities that we were able to provide and that we'd established were helping students accomplish what they wanted to accomplish. So we broke away from that model and decided to enter the higher ed arena on our own. Now, you've probably heard a lot about adaptive systems from a lot of different companies. What most companies are talking about when they talk adaptive is about things like pre-baked rules. There are instructional designers at all of these companies that establish that if you answer A correctly, you go to B. If you answer B correctly, you go to C. If you answer C incorrectly, you go to Y. And those rules are baked in, based around a limited content pool with relatively little efficacy data, and no student proficiency data either. But this is what you see, the animation on the screen in front of you. And I know, coming from the traditional publishing context, this is how we established adaptivity. So by way of contrast, let me then introduce you to Alta, which is Knewton's fully integrated adaptive learning courseware. And I'm going to start because, as John said at the beginning of this call, I am the Senior Director of Content here. And ultimately, if you subscribe to the conceit of adaptivity and its value, ultimately then it comes down to kicking the tires of how good the content is, where it comes from, etc. And what we do at Knewton, I've used the word symbiosis probably a couple of times already in the last 8 minutes, but there is a symbiosis between our adaptive mastery-based platform, which is trying to provide students with the most efficient, effective path towards mastery. The content that leads them there comes from a variety of sources, and these sources help us keep the cost of our product very low because it's OER, it's Open Educational Resources. So our primary partner is OpenStax, which comes out of Rice University, and you're probably all familiar with it. But we supplement that with the contributions of university and college professors, as well as the content team. My content team, which is unique in the higher ed space, is actually full of domain experts. So I have mathematicians and former educators. Those descriptions apply to individuals. They're both mathematicians and content experts, or statisticians or chemistry experts. My team is full of domain experts, and they will occasionally fill out some of the, quote unquote, gaps that we might see. And that at that point, that bears a little bit of description of what my team really does. When we enter a particular course area, let's say intro stats, what they do is they establish, after a lot of research, the learning objectives that are going to help the students, again, on their most efficient, effective road toward mastery of those key objectives. They research what everybody is teaching, and we try and occupy the fat part of the bell curve to meet those objectives. And if OpenStax, for instance, doesn't fulfill all those objectives, that's where we supplement with the contributions of college and university professors and our own content team. And for every objective within any one of our courses, there is both text-based instruction and video-based instruction, which is then supported and augmented by the assessments we commission relative to the unique pairing of that text-based instruction, that video-based instruction. All that instruction is Open Educational Resource as a basis, and then we commission unique assessments relative to that, and relative to, or at least cognizant of the fact that it's a mastery-based adaptive system. So those items are calibrated to ensure that students are moving most efficiently towards mastery of that particular objective. My team also thinks about the prerequisites that are established. So they look at, if you're in mathematics and you're trying to drive towards an objective relative to fractions, but you're tripping over your mastery of whole numbers, we will seamlessly serve up practice and remediation on whole numbers to, again, help you on that most efficient road toward mastery of that objective. So that's what my team really does. They curate, they cultivate open educational resources and bring it within our adaptive platform to provide that student with the most efficient, effective road towards mastery. And something I'll get into the next slide, but what all that also translates into is sort of a side benefit, and I referenced this earlier, no more new editions for you ever. And let me tell you about how that happens. We have an in-house data science team. We are constantly analyzing our both instructional assessment content. I've sat in innumerable meetings where we can look at an item and say, okay, 77% of students flagged on that item, and we develop hypotheses around that. We validate those hypotheses with subject matter experts, and we iterate as we need to based on that experience. Sometimes the item is hard because it's supposed to be hard. Sometimes that item could be calibrated better with our instructional content. But the takeaway here is that with our data science team, we're constantly optimizing the platform and the content therein. We're not changing the table of contents. We're not adding huge sections of things. This is something that sort of seamlessly feeds into your experience and your students' experience of the platform. We not only proactively analyze the data that we're getting from our platform with data science, but we're also responding on a daily basis, and there's no hyperbole there. It's literally daily. We're responding to the feedback button that's on every page of the platform, and we have a team of people, which makes it sound like they have very dreary lives, but we have a team of people who are fielding those comments that come from students and instructors on a daily basis, analyzing that and iterating and revising as needed. Sometimes we'll get a comment that they didn't understand an item relative to the instruction they just read, so we'll revise based on that. Happily, most of the time, there's really not an issue. Somebody just didn't quite understand what they needed to understand, but was baked into the instructional content. But we attend to every single thing that anybody puts to us in the feedback button, and that results in some daily adjustments. So long story short, you get to use a platform that is constantly evolving and getting better and constantly iterating, but without needing to change up your notes, change up your class, because there's a new edition coming. One of the other unique things about Knewton is that we provide both inter and intra domain recommendations. I refer to my team's process of sussing out prerequisites. It was the fractions versus whole numbers story that I gave you, but we're also able to go between domains. So if a student is working through chemistry, for instance, and they're flagging on reaching mastery of that particular objective, if we're able to suss out, and we do, suss out that they're actually tripping over the math that undergirds that particular chemistry objective. And a lot of chemistry instructors end up feeling like algebra instructors at various points. We're able to serve them with algebra remediation, again, relatively seamlessly, so that they just labor towards the achievement of that objective as efficiently as possible. If you need this particular type of instruction, we'll serve it up, even if it's outside the domain of chemistry. So I've strayed across a number of these, but and this is the beginning of my set of summary slides. And again, I'll turn it over to G, who will be, I'm sure, far more interesting as an actual instructor. But just to cement some of what I said and some of what's exciting about being here at Knewton is that the fulcrum of everything is we're within a context of expertly designed technology. Simple is hard. They've done the hard work, and the technology is incredibly easy to use. And again, from 20 years in the traditional publishing arena, where we bolted on features onto various platforms, even having had 2 decades in it, occasionally it was hard to show instructors, okay, well, this is how you do X. What everybody thinks about here is, how can we make X easy? And that goes to a variety of things. So we have state-of-the-art user experience. The raison d'etre of what we do is the just-in-time instruction and remediation to provide students with the most efficient path towards mastery of a particular objective, but that actually hits a number of other items, such as seamless LMS integration. I am not the most gifted in showing that, but I have seen my product colleagues demonstrate that to instructors. And again, without hyperbole, I've seen them swoon at what they're seeing. So we, in fact, designed the product with the presumption that there's going to be an integration with an LMS, be it Blackboard, Canvas, D2L, Moodle, what have you. We did not build a grade book. We built a dashboard, but we did not build a grade book, again, because of the presumption that there's going to be it's going to be acting in concert with an LMS, and we designed it so you don't have two grade books to deal with. You have your LMS to harvest your grades from. I began the presentation with the sentiment of putting achievement within reach of everyone, and that too has a number of nuances. Starting at the right side of the screen, that means access and support for anyone, anywhere, at any time. That means that you get an equivalent experience if you're on your phone, if you're on your laptop, if you're on your tablet, if you are in a tutoring center on campus with an older computer, you get the equivalent experience no matter where you are. And we want to make sure that that's true. We're also WCAG 2.0 AA, it's not on the slide, but AA ADA compliant. So students who have visual impairments, hearing impairments, etc., we have invested heavily in the last 6 months to ensure that we are best of breed when it comes to ADA compliance. So that means alt tags for images that are both short and long relative to JAWS readers. We have for our videos both captions and descriptive transcripts, and given that we're a STEM provider of content and experience, having descriptive transcripts that tell a student what's happening in the video rather than just what's being said is of critical importance, and we're there, we're across the finish line. And finally, we don't want socioeconomic situations to be a barrier to using our platform. So for any of our courses, be it intro stats, be it business statistics, be it college algebra, general chemistry, for any of those courses, a student is going to pay $44 for 2 years of access to that platform. And again, coming from a traditional publishing context, that is a precipitous drop in the pricing that your students are probably currently facing. I've talked a little bit about the mastery-based nature of our platform. I think that bears speaking to the results that we're seeing, even as a new entrant independently into the higher ed space. So across all of our students who have used our platform thus far, 87% of them achieve mastery. And we kind of refer to this as the great equalizer, because not only are gifted students or even just good students achieving that, but struggling students. And we're able to suss out whether a student is struggling within relatively few interactions with the platform. 82% of those have achieved mastery. And when you achieve mastery, that has a strong bearing on a summative assessment that's being given. Better quiz scores are achieved for all students. They go from 55% to 81% when you actually have achieved mastery and engaging in the practice that any assignment provides. And again, for students who are struggling, those students who enter our platform and begin getting answers incorrect, and they get a number of them incorrect in their first interaction relative to a particular assignment or objective, if they engage in the adaptive mastery-based practice, their quiz scores go up from an average of 38 percentage points, so from 40 to 78% correct. And so this is just a summary before I turn it over to the more interesting G, just to let you kind of recap what I've covered here. I know because it's a little bit discursive because that's the way I talk. But if you're thinking about Knewton's Alta platform, our integrated adaptive learning courseware, the things to keep in mind is that, again, we're a technology company first. So we have expertly designed technology, which translates to you as ease of use, both for you and for your students. We imbue the platform with high quality open educational resources that are curated and cultivated by my team and reviewed by subject matter experts to ensure the most efficient, effective path towards mastery for your students. Seamless LMS integration, so you do not have to deal with two grade books. You have, again, that goes to the expertly designed technology. There's just an ease of use that's baked into that. It's accessible not only to students at various levels of preparedness, but also students who might come with additional learning challenges into your class. And finally, it's affordable at $44, which again is a fraction of the cost that you're seeing at traditional publishers, which is one of the things that makes it thrilling for me to be here, because after 20 years, ultimately, I couldn't abide by what we were trying to charge students or explain it to instructors or students that yes, this is worth $300. $44 seems much more in the vein of the palatable and responsible. And with that, I think I will be turning it over to John, who will transition it back to G.
Hey, thank you, Eric. Okay, now we're going to pass the comm over to Professor G. Tashbin, who's instructing mathematics and College of Arts and Sciences at the University of Mobile. And we're going to transition, and you have the comm, G.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. And I appreciate, Eric, thank you so much for talking about that on the front end. Okay, I'm G. Tashbin. I work at the University of Mobile. I'm currently an instructor in the Arts and Sciences, College of Arts and Sciences, and I teach math. I teach a lot of math, but right now I teach elementary statistics courses and algebra courses. Okay, I'm excited to talk about Knewton because I've been using it this year. Just to kind of give you some quick background, I believe all students can learn and succeed, but not on the same day and in the same way. And until I got to the University of Mobile and was allowed to kind of choose my own path on how to teach this course, this didn't necessarily work out. We were more of a traditional lecture, take 3 tests in a semester, give little to no credit for homework, have an expensive book, expensive homework site. Okay, my background is I have 19 years of teaching experience in math and statistics. I was at a public university for 16 years, and I just started at the University of Mobile full-time. I was an adjunct here for 7. I'm here now as a full-time instructor. I also taught high school for 3 years at the beginning of my career, mathematics. I've been using Knewton in all my classes the past 2 semesters. That includes 3 statistics courses of about 30 each, and usually 2 algebra courses as well. But I've been using it mostly, and you'll see the breakdown of my statistics courses because I think the algebra classes, the Knewton's been wonderful, but I also do some other things there as well. Okay, let's look at my sections from fall 2017 and spring of this year. In the fall, I had about 100 students in my 3 classes. This semester, I'm teaching 4 as well, but one of them is an 8-week course that actually starts tonight, and it has about 30 or so in it as well. My courses consist of 4 types of classifications of students: freshmen, sophomore, juniors, and seniors. So I have the full gamut there, 18 plus. I have a number of different majors that are required to take our elementary statistics course here at the University of Mobile. For example, psychology, business, nursing, sociology, kinesiology, math, education, and so forth. So I have 4 different classifications of students and a number of different majors. So you can see where this is going in terms of having so many different people and I need them all to have mastery of the concepts I teach. Here's a breakdown of how my courses currently break down. Our classes meet for 1 hour and 20 minutes, 2 times a week for 16 weeks. My assignments have changed. I think I explained earlier. Traditionally, these courses taught here or at my previous university were little to no credit for homework, and tests count the full credit for the course, and there'd be 3 to 4 tests per semester. I think that that traditional way of doing the courses didn't work. I believe that the research has shown. I didn't believe it worked for us. A lot of times students were so worried about passing the test, they were so high stakes that it wasn't necessarily about learning the subject and enjoying the subject, mastering the concepts. It was, I've got to pass the test, and I'll do whatever I can to pass that test. And the research showed that students were, there's too much stress, there was a lot of cheating involved, and I think this format that I've changed it to, with the help of Knewton, has allowed me to let students fail productively, if you will. I believe students have to have an opportunity to attempt something, make mistakes, get some feedback, correct the mistakes, and it not kill their entire semester in terms of a grade on one test. So what I've done is I've changed the way my course is presented. Currently, I do it this way. I've changed it to where homework now, since I use Knewton, counts for 40% of my overall grade. They have a lot of homework assignments over the semester. They're all on Knewton. Nothing's paper-based in terms of homework. Everything's done online. And Eric pointed out earlier, they use their phones, they use their tablets, they use laptops, desktops, etc. 20% of the course is quizzes. 10% is a midterm and 10% is a final. So if you look at that 80% breakdown, that's all Knewton assignments. All of that is in Knewton. The non-Knewton assignments will include in-class activities, and I put /lecture, even though with the help of Knewton, I've reduced the lecture time in my courses, and we spend a lot of time in class doing activities. We take what they learn, they master the concepts in Knewton, we discuss a little bit of the topic overall, and then in class we apply what they learned to real-world activities. I think this has been helpful not only for my students now in terms of grades are important for them, but they're learning. But I think this helps them set them up for the job market. And we've been talking a lot here that we want to make sure students are prepared for a future job. And I always tell them, and this is what we do in class is what we're going to do if you're at a job. You're going to work on projects, et cetera. And you have to have ways of learning that material or becoming sharp or doing your own research outside of an hour and 20-minute session, if you will. Okay, the homework, again, is the foundation of the grade in the course. A couple of things that help here with using Knewton is students get credit for their homework. In the past, the setup at my public unit institution and even here, we all did things very similar. Students were not given credit for their homework. And I look at that as, I'm a human being as well. If you don't give people credit for something, what makes the student want to go out and do this? So by changing this, my students have all, I say all, the majority of my students they complete their homework. What I do is I give them a set number of days to complete their homework assignments. Let's just give an example. Let's say we have class on Monday. I'll say, okay, you have 3 days to work on this assignment, and we'll discuss it again. And what I like with there as well is that the students want to work the homework because they get credit for it, but it also allows them to master the subject. And it allows students to work whenever they feel. You saw this first slide I had where I believe all students can learn, just not at the same time in the same way. Well, I have some students who leave class and go to work. I have a lot of athletes. They'll go practice. And they say, my best time to study is between 8 and 10. So they can go do their homework between 8 and 10. Some of them get up early in the morning to do their homework. And as long as it's done within a certain time frame, if they're sick, they can work on it, etc. My students are encouraged, because of the mastery portion of Knewton, to make 100% on all of their assignments. And I'll show you a slide at the end that I think is very interesting, kind of wraps up that piece of the story. But I want them to master the subjects. I don't want them to just say, oh, well, I'll just make a 60 on this assignment, and on the next assignment I'll do better. I want them to try to make 100 on all of their homework assignments. Students are allowed to work as many problems they need to obtain mastery. The Knewton system, so I have some students that'll work, let's say, half a dozen problems to a dozen per learning objective. Some of them work 30 problems per learning objective. And it's up to the system based on how they answer and whether they need certain types of remediation or if they need extra practice. And again, they can work all the way to 100%. The quizzes are also in Knewton, and I encourage them to use outside resources. I know sometimes traditionally over the years, teachers have said, you know, we need to put them in the room. I was this person, put them in the room. They have an hour and 20, give it to me. And what I got, I think, is I got a brain dump on some of these students. So I encourage them to use outside resources, do research. I treat it, again, as a job. I want them to do well on the quizzes, so I allow them to. And if you notice, it's a 20% versus the 40% of the homework. Students are given a set number of days to complete the quizzes as well, and they're encouraged to make 100%. It doesn't mean they're going to, but because they can look at their old homework, they can go through Knewton and work more problems based on the concept. Instead of it just being such a huge grade killer for the semester, it ends up being something that I'm able to see what they know in a short, quick snapshot along with our in-class activities. The midterm and the final are 10% each for my course, and they're very similar to the quizzes. I have them use outside resources, give them a set number of day, and also encourage them to make 100% on the midterm and final. Now, the tests and quizzes are not like the homework in terms of they can't continue to work until they make 100, but let's say they take the midterm and let's say it has 20 to 30 problems on it, then they can work through those, submit, and get a score. What Knewton has allowed me to do, and as a teacher who's been in this business for a long time, this is really valuable for me and the students. We do a lot of in-class activities. Students are given very minimal amounts of information via lecture. I've found over the years that if I lecture for an hour and 20 minutes, students will copy their notes for an hour and 20 minutes. They might not look at them again until maybe they do some homework that I'm not going to give them little or no credit for. And it's just a vicious cycle. And then students come to class, they ask questions, they don't know what's going on. I'm not showing them how to apply what they learn. So we get into this vicious cycle. So we do talk and discuss in class, but it's very minimal. Knewton allows the supplementation of that information while they're working through their problems. Students spend a lot less time writing down information. Again, I found that students don't get a lot out of that. They have the notes. Sometimes you ask them and they have these pretty notes, but they can't tell you what they wrote down because they were furiously writing for an hour plus. What we do in classes, we work real world problems based on the concepts that they learned in the homework. So we'll get together in groups. We'll give them situations. And what we've done just for the statistics class, for example, in the past, we would say, let's say we worked a problem, I'd give them some data. We'd say, okay, let's find the measures of central tendency for this data. Well, the data wasn't meaningful to them. It was, let's find the diameters of spark plugs. And what I've done now is because I have time in class, we collect our own data. We collect data that's, and what I'll do is I'll put them in groups based on their majors. The nursing students will collect data that's interesting to them. The business team will get their information, and then we'll have them find measures of central tendency and discuss it, and then talk about what it means. What do those numbers mean? How does it affect their decisions in those fields? And then finally, I'm really big on students working collaboratively, and we spend the class time doing it. I don't require them to do a lot outside of class in terms of collaborative work. I know they all have different things going on, so we spend that time in class working through a lot of that. The quality of Knewton has been exceptional for me. My students learn while they work on their homework. They get immediate assistance on diverse student deficiencies. I've gotten positive student responses to them being able to move at their own pace toward mastery. And you know as well, I have, in a given semester, I always have 100+ students in all my courses. There's only one of me, or we have tutors on campus, but there's not near enough to supplement if students have issues. So Knewton has taken that role on in terms of being adaptive to that particular student's needs. If they're having a problem on one learning objective, they might work more problems, watch more videos, read more text, work some sub problems to get back to the original problem. Another student might be perfectly fine on that concept. They can get through it quickly and move to the next. It's just been great for me as a teacher. let me show you this. I think this is pretty powerful here. This is an assignment from one of my students. It was dealing with sampling and things like that. It's the very beginning of the course. And this student, if you notice here, now this is, let me say this is an outlier, if you will, on this student worked, if you look the total here, what is that? It's, so they worked 118 problems or so on this. And this is one assignment. And within a given, give you an example, we just came off of spring break. They had 20 assignments before we hit spring break. This is one of 20, and this young person worked a lot of problems for one assignment. And then if you notice, they watched or read 24 different instructional items. The student, if you notice the grade at the top, they made 100. I encourage them to make 100. This is, like I said, this is not very typical of most students. Most students, you'll see this, it'll say 12 correct, 5 wrong, 2 instructions, 3 instructions or so on a particular assignment possibly. This student never emailed me one time complaining that they had to do all this work. The student never contacted me and said, hey, I'm having an issue. I need you to tell me about it. If you notice, they watched or read enough material to master the subject enough to make 100% on this. And this is something in the past where if a student wasn't doing well, they'd take whatever grade they could, or I wasn't giving them credit for homework, so they wouldn't do it, show up in class, try to be quiet in the back of the room, not say anything. And I wouldn't find out till they took the test right before the midterm, and they bombed it horribly. And then that would kill their grade for the semester because it was 1 of 3 or 1 of 4 overall. So I think this one is really cool. This is just a quick snapshot of what it does, and I can see this for any student on any assignment. It'll show what questions they attempted, which ones they got correct, which ones they got incorrect, and what types of instructions. So I think this here is the best snapshot of what Knewton has done for me and my students. I think it's really interesting too, working with Knewton. Knewton has been amazing. Their customer service has been amazing for me as an instructor. Anytime I talk to them, whether it's email or phone, they want to hear what I have to say. And that really helps me because as an instructor, I want things to do certain things for my students. I want concepts to come across a certain way. And if I have an issue or I want to just provide feedback that might help in the future, Knewton's always happy to hear what I have to say. They have always, since I've used them again here at the University of Mobile, they're always quick to respond to me. If my students have an issue, the feedback button, they can get help. They've told me that Knewton handles it. It takes a lot of that burden off of me because I'm not the technical expert here. Or if there is an issue in terms of, say, maybe a question is worded a little bit oddly, if you will. Well, Knewton will listen to what we have to say and they'll work on it and change it to help us out. I think overall, Knewton has helped me be a better teacher. I enjoy going to class now. It's not just me talking all the time. It's they're doing the work, they're discussing things, and then they feel better because they actually there's more of an intrinsic motivation now for my students to come to class because they want to learn. This gives them an opportunity to learn and master rather than before it was more extrinsic in terms of I've got to make a grade on this certain test. That's all I'm worried about. So I think this has been great for me as a teacher and for my students as well. Okay, I had to wrap up in a certain amount of time, so I'm there. I know it was
questions. If anyone has questions for G or for Eric, please type them in the question bar now. One question was, is it possible to reorder or omit topics in Knewton Alta?
I'll take that, and it's Eric, and yes, absolutely. You can construct your course as you would with any other product or text to include chapters that you consider appropriate, and within any assignment, you are able to toggle on or off as easily as you would turn on or off your Wi-Fi on your phone. In fact, the interface looks a lot like that. Any objectives that you do or do not want to cover. So you're absolutely able to customize your course to your liking. For whatever objectives you want to achieve, we're able to supply that flexibility.
Super. That's all the questions we have in right now. So, G, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be with us here today. Thank you, Eric. So, and thank you for attending our session. And we'll be sending you a link to the recording. So, G, if you could just advance the slide. You can go to Knewton, Alta.com to leave a question, or you can also request a demo, get access to an instructor preview account. As we said, we'll also be sending you an email after this session. You can just respond to that if there's anything we can help you with. And thanks for joining us, and have a great day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.